Hi guys, this is Jake at Canadian Cutting Edge, and today we're looking at the Sanrenmu 9046, the big brother of another knife that looks identical, but it's smaller. I'm thinking it's the 6046. Sorry, I don't know exactly. I'll put it on the bottom of the screen here. Except for this knife has got a cordage ripper that has a liner lock system of its own, a nut driver, glass breaker, 2-position pocket clip, modified chisel grind kind of blade on a liner lock. This is a hefty, very utilitarian kind of knife that I think a lot of you guys would be very interested in, even though you don't know you're interested. If you got one of these in your hand, I think you'd enjoy it and find a lot of uses for it. Stick around for the Sanrenmu 9046 LCC-GH-T3, a big kind of cryptic kind of name for this Sanrenmu land knife. The 9046 is the big brother of the 7046. This guy has the name Liang design on the blade. This larger knife does not. Liang has been a designer for Sanrenmu and for Real Steel, and I believe this knife is also his design because it's the same knife, very slight modifications. We've got G10 instead of aluminum scales, slightly different body design. This one, the shape comes all the way down with the liners. This one, the aluminum handle scale does not come all the way out with the liners. You know, very much the exact same shape blade, you know, 2 glass breakers, very much the same. Both liner locks like this, both have the same nut driver in them, both have the same thumb pad on top, both have the exact same swedges on the blade, and they both have the same final grind on the blade as well. We've got basically a flat grind on both sides of the blade, and then a micro grind only on one side. Same thing's true on this knife. So it's very much the same knife in so many different ways. And so we'll put this guy away. If you want to look at the review of the 7046, use the links in the description or at the end of the video. We're focused on this guy today, and what a knife it is. It's a heavy knife, 6 ounces even, 171 grams. So it's not a light knife. A lot of that weight comes from these thick G10 handle scales, and it's got a G10 backspacer, a full backspacer, but that's not too heavy because it's just, you know, a thin piece of G10 that goes along the spine of the handle. And then we've got full liners that are a fair thickness there and only minor skeletonization on them. And then we've got a 3mm blade. Now that 3mm thick blade is 0.12 inches. Let's go on with the rest of the specs. The cutting edge, and this time I'm thinking just the straight edge between my fingers right here, is 2 3/4 inches, which is 7 centimeters. This last little bit here is 17 millimeters, which is 0.67 inches. That little bit there's 8 millimeters, which is 0.3 inches. And then we've got the nice swedge up the spine. So you can call it a clip point, if you will, because it's got a flat edge here, but really it's not a clip point. It's a very unique kind of blade style that doesn't have its own name, and I'm calling it a modified chisel grind, for lack of a better word. And there's that thumb pad, ziggurat shaped, I guess. It's not a pyramid, but because it's got steps, but you know, there it is. The full length of this knife, and I've just rounded a tiny little bit, is 20 centimeters or 8 inches. And the handle thickness is 1.6 centimeters, which is 0.65 of an inch. The handle length by itself is 11.2 centimeters, which is 4.4 inches. The only other measurement I didn't give you, and I know I've done the measurements in a different order than I usually do, I'm sure you can follow anyways. The behind the grind measurement, even though it's just beveled on one side with a micro grind, is 0.54 millimeters, which is 0.21 inches. So it's still a very common EDC kind of thickness behind the grind. And it does cut okay for EDC style duties. Let's take some paper and see what we can do with that. So you can see that edge is very clean. This paper is a little bit thicker, and we'll try it from this side now, which does make a difference because the final bevel is the other direction. And yet it cuts pretty well that way. Also, let's try a couple layers of paracord, and it just zips through that, no problem. And we can do a, just a chisel cut like that, and that cuts through just fine. Or we can slide it through like that, and that cuts through just great as well. So we know that the cutting's very good. Let's take a look at the lockup. Lockup is a little bit later than I like on a brand new knife. It's close to mid, but I have used this thing an awful lot. I've had this knife for about 3 months now, and I've played with it an awful lot, and it has moved ever so slightly. It's got one of those locks on here that when you slide it forward, it moves a tiny arm in place over there that stops the lock, the liner lock, from opening all the way. I'm not too fond of this kind of locking system. I don't really like it at all. I end up accidentally engaging the lock when I don't want to. And the few times when I did use the lock, I ended up disengaging it inadvertently. So I don't really like it at all. Lockup is solid, no blade play back and forth, up and down, very solid lockup, early enough that it's got lots of life in it. You can see some jimping on the liners, not on the G10, back here and back there. And this sort of squarish shape of everything all angled makes this knife very comfortable to use in any grip that you want. It's just a knife that just kind of fits most hands. I've got large size hands that are right on the borderline between large and extra large in North American sizes. That's 9 or 10 in European sizes. It's got a sharpener's choil here on the blade. That's a good feature. Let's talk about the extra features that are on this knife. Let's start at the back. Glass breaker's got a tungsten tip on it, which has proven very effective in breaking glass. Then we've got this nut driver, 10 millimeters, 4, 6, 8, and 10 millimeter nut driver, hexagonal nuts, which is the common shape for nuts. And then you've got this cordage ripper that's got a liner lock of its own. So listen to this. And you can see that liner lock right there engaging when the lock is in place. See how this liner is so thick that they had to cut a little bit of a relief on the liner right there in order to get the liner lock to work. And when it's locked in place, it's very strong. Let's close the blade out of our way. In this position, this ripper works very well as a great emergency cordage ripper, a seatbelt ripper especially. Very secure, very safe way to have it because it's locked in place. It cuts many things very, very well. We've got like a 6 millimeter spread between these two cutting edges at the mouth of this cutter. Rips very well through all kinds of stuff. Let's demonstrate with some G10. Let's demonstrate with some paracord, and it'll just zip through it when I start pulling. Very, very easy to cut. No problem at all, and it cuts seatbelt material very well. It's just a good cutter. I really, really like that feature an awful lot. It's one of the main reasons why I carry this knife as much as I do. This is not just a glorified package opener. This thing will open just about anything you want to. Very, very strong edges and very thick blade. I mentioned 3 millimeters already. It just works very, very well. What do we have inside the pivot? Very interesting. I'll show you the shot of this knife taken apart. So the exploded view, I'll do that right now. Hopefully you noticed in there that there are 2 washers on each side of the blade here. There's a phosphor bronze washer that's right next to the blade, a very thin one. And right next to that is a dark nylon washer. And after the nylon washer is the liner. So we've got 2 washers on each side, making 4 washers in total. 2 nylon, 2 phosphor bronze, a very, very slick, easy to use washer system in there. Makes the blade very easy to deploy. You don't need to have any wrist movement. It deploys very well and locks up solid. I like it a lot. Interesting kind of styling on the pivot screws there. And the pocket clip, let's do that next and show you how well it sits in a pocket. So there we've got our jeans stand in, and we put it in our pocket, and we've got just a little bit of the knife sticking out. And you can see that from those different angles. The pocket clip is very efficient, works very well. And I'll give you a still shot of the pocket clip when it's in this position. It actually rides deeper if you have the pocket clip tipped down than it does when it's tipped up. But that's very, very true on most knives that give you the option of both tip up and tip down. I don't know why, but almost always the tip down position rides deeper than the tip up. It's just the way they design them. It's kind of strange. So there you have it. That's the knife. What are the pros and the cons of this knife? I'll let you know. One of the big pros is all the features on this knife. I really like it a lot. It's a pro that there's some skeletonizing that got it down to 6 ounces. It's a con that there's not enough skeletonizing. Also, I wish the G10 was a little bit thinner. They could have made it thinner and lighter, so the knife would be closer to 5 ounces instead of 6. I really like the pocket clip, and I like that you've got the options of tip up and tip down. That's a great thing. Although you don't have left and right. You've only got right side pocket clip, and they could have very easily made it left and right, but they chose not to. I like the thumb plate. It's a really good design. The thumb meets up with that edge very well. It's got that sort of jimped kind of look and feel to it. Very easy to actuate this knife. Very easy to use it left-handed and right-handed. At least for me, no problem at all. What are the different cons? Well, I mentioned that lock. I don't like that at all. I think it's too heavy. I don't know if all that thickness was necessary for the design, so I wish they would have made it lighter. The jimping is kind of meaningless. It doesn't really help because it's not on the G10 as well. So it's just there for an aesthetic purpose. And that's about it. I'm not either pro or con about the glass breaker. And the really good thing about it is it's not that hard to remove. So if you don't like it, take it off. If you do like it, leave it in place. Very, very optional for that. It's a unique knife. It's cool. It's very effective. And the main thing I like about this knife is that it's comfortable in hand and it is super robust for cutting just about anything you can imagine cutting. So there you go. That's the Sanrenmu 9046. I just need to let you know, today is May the 11th when this video is going live. In just a few days, GearBest is doing a huge promo, a big brands flash sale promo. I've got a link in the description. Please avail yourself of using that link to take a look at this promo that they're doing. GearBest asked me to announce it. I took a look at what their sale is going to be. I think you're going to be able to get a lot of great stuff for a lot of great prices, and it'll be organized by brands. One of the brands I really like is Xiaomi, and I've got another camera review coming up for one of their products. I love Xiaomi an awful lot. I've got a few other Xiaomi products coming up. And for those of you who were curious, the other night when I couldn't sleep, I was walking around with a knife in my hand in the middle of the night, and I was flipping it back and forth. And while it was open, I was playing with it a little bit, and I got this finger, my middle finger, somehow along here, and I sliced across the edge of my finger. So I sliced across the finger there. So I took off just a thin layer of all of my skin down to the last layer of skin where the flesh is down there. And so it's a bit sensitive at the tip of my finger right there. Not that big of a deal, but I don't want it to get infected, so I keep it clean and covered up. So there you go. Thank you for liking my channel. Thank you for subscribing and sharing my videos. Especially, I thank you so much for commenting. What do you think of this knife? Do you like it? Do you think it's a gimmick? Do you think it's cool? Do you think it's effective? Do you own either the 9046 or the 7046? I'd like to hear about your experiences with them. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.